Let us execute an immediate sweeping analytical vector shift away from immediate matrimonial hazard, weaponized shadow harassment loops, and the city hall corridors of short-form vigilante suspense, and plunge straight into the high-octane calculation-heavy tracking grids of deceptive adoption pipelines, weaponized pediatric manipulation loops, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered maternal asset running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a fracturing suburban household sanctuary, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating double-blind psychological deception matrix with Her First Lie, a thriller, the exceptional, pulse-pounding contemporary suspense masterpiece engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking childhood secrets, razor-sharp behavioral traps, and high-velocity relational friction, Lucinda Berry. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a hyper-vigilant primary adoptive mother asset running an unyielding truth extraction loop, a calculating manipulative shadow network of biological relatives running an elite proximity tracking and standard sanity erasure routine, and an absolute defense against an encroaching domestic confined psychological captivity zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological journeys where an endangered, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged foster system documentation, corrupt psychological evaluations, and a deadly ring of active personal identity frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised domestic ecosystem where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated nursery boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing private medical history mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced clinical gaslighting thriller tracking a mother who welcomes a troubled adopted child into her home, only to realize the child's calculated lies and dangerous behavior are part of a lethal coordinated plot engineered by an outside handler diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Berry completely dominates the high-precision pediatric jeopardy meets suffocating identity erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like Gillian Flynn, Frida McFadden, of a total loss of domestic safety networks, absolute emotional liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within an unyielding clinical framework. Behind our protagonists' rigorous household footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried maternal instincts, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt placement sequence, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an encroaching psychological predation and internal investigator threat network, parsing complex behavioral shifts in her daily parent-child interaction loops, and shielding her vulnerable personal sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless domestic cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. After completing the baseline integration routine for her new child, our primary asset registers a total security breach when the household environment initializes an irregular psychological onboarding sequence, systematically tracking erratic behavior, matching location coordinates to outside encounter zones, and forcing her into a proximity tracking matrix with a chilling web of hidden biological ties. Behind the child's pristine, smooth innocence facade and elite behavioral mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a ticking clock timeline, the unauthorized discovery of missing psychiatric evaluations, hidden biological receipts, and fabricated identity sheets reveals that her entire domestic sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine domestic courtesy and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. She is thrust directly into an active, invisible war behind closed suburban doors, where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her survival data stream and execute her complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large family living spaces, dark concrete clinical corridors, and private fortified residential rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve her focus before her adversary's relentless, calculation-heavy proximity phase permanently deletes her boundaries.
The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through chilling psychological manipulations, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via targeted childhood fabrications, and persistent dominance to shatter her defense, only to realize her hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of ancient adoption logs, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Lucinda Berry reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial domestic ambush or managing an invasive internal audit. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of maternal manipulation and primal supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a maternal psychological thriller, clinical captivity noir, deceptive adoption mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unsubverted psychological file triggers a fatal sanctuary showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Berry writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, sterile clinical tiles, spilled milk, old cardboard storage boxes, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary franchise installment marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Her First Lie, a thriller, is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lot your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.